Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. So today we're playing a deck that was requested by a viewer about 1,000,000 times, Silent Swordsman Heroes, which should be a testament to the fact that persistence is key. One of the main problems with Masked Hero in the year 2017 is that a Bahamut Shark plus a Totally Awesome is as dead as a doornail, and playing Protect the Dark Law isn't a very good game plan. Thankfully, there is one other busted stun monster waiting just out of reach of playability, Silent Swordsman. So let's jump into deck edit and see what we're working with. So here's the list. Now before you lose your shit over the first hero deck I think I've ever shown you that doesn't include Bubblemen, don't worry, I'll give you a little bit of background about the archetype, a little bit of an idea about what I hope the deck can do, and as always, the card by card. So firstly, for those of you who don't know, Hero is a personal favorite of mine. Unfortunately, since the advent of Master Rule 4, the deck has lost a lot of its playability, which sucks for an avid Bahamut bro. The core of Masked Hero has, since 2015, remained largely the same: Shadow Mist, Mask Change, A Hero Lives, an Emergency Call, always ensure you'll have a consistent Dark Law turn 1, and the bevy of rank 4 options afforded by Bubbleman meant you would have 4s to back them up. The deck has been dropping in playability in every format since ABC's dominated, mostly due to general power creep. Silent Swordsman, inversely, is a fan-favorite archetype that was never playable in the first place. Despite Silent Swordsman level 7's incredibly powerful spell negation effect, the other cards that make up the archetype suffered from the same design mistakes as all the other LV cards. They're slow, they're draw-reliant, they're easily disruptible, etc. Konami, in response, printed Silent Swordsman, a level-less card that can negate one spell a turn, gains attack instead of levels, and floats into Royal Oppression Swordsman when it dies. Since its printing, it's been looking for a shell, and this puts up the best argument yet. This deck is slightly different than Masked Hero was. We're looking to make Dark Law, sure, but since we aren't able to use the straggling monsters to summon rank 4s, we might as well use them for tribute fodder for Silent Swordsman. We've got a small D-Hero package to make links and attribute repeatedly, a special summoning package including Summoner Monks to send Sword Slash, a card that searches Swordsman if you banish it, to the graveyard, and of course Vion and all of his friends. Hopefully we'll be able to consistently make Dark Law plus Swordsman, and in some pretty sweet cases we should be able to make some Link monsters as well. So, with that, let's jump into the card by card. First, our Destiny Heroes. 3 copies of Malicious and 2 copies of Celestial, enough to finance 2 Destiny draws. I'm not all the way convinced by this, but Celestial is the least bad other Destiny hero, and he has a small chance to draw you some cards. Next is Classic Edition Shadow Mist, followed by newcomer Vision Hero Vion, who will usually send a Malicious to graveyard and can banish a guy to snag us a copy of that sweet, sweet polymerization. After that are the Silent Swordsmen, 3 of them to be precise, who can negate a spell once per turn and gains 500 attack every standby, followed by the one of Silent Swordsman level 7, which it floats into. Next is a Goblinberg for Rhoda Searches and Special Summoning, followed by Semi-Limited All-Star Summoner Monk. Next are our spells, and we have a lot of them. 3 copies of Allure of Darkness can get those Celestials out of our deck. 3 copies of A Hero Lives can get anything else. 3 Mask Change in order to make Dark Law. 3 Sword Slash, which is an interesting card. It gives your Silent Swordsman 1500 attack and defense when it's activated, and prevents them from being destroyed by an opponent's card effect till end of turn. It can also be banished from the graveyard to search a Silent Swordsman. Next are 2 Foolish Burial Goods for those of you who followed this line of reasoning and want to bin some slashes. After that is Desires, a good card. Destiny Draw, a good card, and a Rhoda Raigeki Foolish Burial, all good cards. We're rounding it out with 1 polymerization for our Vion package. In the extra, we've got 1 copy of Anki and 3 copies of Dark Law. We have 1 Adoration and 1 Deadly Guy for our fusion monsters. After that are some 4s, the Utopia Boys, a Castell, a Samurai, and an Abyss Dweller. Finally, we have a Proxy Drag, a Firewall, a Gaia Saber, and a Decode Talker. So with that, let's get into the games. Now, since Dawn of a New Era has some weird ideas about what's legal and what's not in the TCG, you're going to see some weird variation between lists between games based on if I'm in ranked ladder or not. So our first match is up against Vendread Zombies, and you can see our opponent has drawn okay. They have a copy of Shiranui Solitaire, which is, of course, very instrumental to their entire game plan, allows them to go into Omegas. We have opened pretty well as well, thankfully. We have a copy of Shadow Mist, a copy of Silent Swordsman, and A Hero Lives, which should enable us to make a Dark Law and a Silent Swordsman, but where's the fun in that? We're going to get a little greedy and see just how many Swordsmen we can make. We'll start with A Hero Lives to get Shadow Mist, but not use its effect. When we tribute it for Silent Swordsman, we will use the effect to add a Vion to hand. We'll normal that Vion, send ourselves a copy copy of Malicious to grave, banish Malicious for Malicious, then start alluring, start desiring, etc. We get a second copy of Silent Swordsman, and now I'm feeling pretty comfortable as long as my opponent intends to use any meaningful spells. They'll allure, I think that's okay. They'll then go into Solitaire, into Unizombie, discarding a Mizuki from hand in order to get themselves an Omega. I'm not particularly concerned about that, especially since my set card is, of course, the damage step activatable Silent Sword Slash. We'll go immediately into battle phase once we can, just so our opponent doesn't tag out of the Omega, not assuming something's up, of course, and dealing a fair amount of damage in the process. In second main, we'll use Summoner Monk's effect, which immediately gets striked, but that's not a great big deal. Then afterwards, we'll use Malicious for Malicious and banish ourselves a Silent Sword Slash for the Silent Swordsman level 7. Unfortunately, we had banished one of our Silent Swordsmen. We'll go ahead and pump up these two. He uses Mizuki to get back Unizombie, then uses Unizombie's effect to send another Mizuki, normal summons Solitaire, attacks over my Malicious, and goes into a Beals. Now, Beals is actually not that big of a problem, especially since it's in attack mode. We can do a fair amount of damage. We'll go into Castel, which gets Solemn Warninged, and now he's in kill range. We'll go ahead and do 1,500 points of damage, but unfortunately, that's just not enough to close the deal. And the next couple of turns are very frustrating. He'll switch it to defense mode, pass it back. We draw into a card that does not out Beals. We'll set it, pass it back. Our opponent draws into a card that does not change the board state and pass it back. We'll draw into another card that does not out Beals and pass it back. At this point, I wish I was playing 2 copies of Castel. At this point, our opponent is going to finally break the stalemate, going to go Zuki, will negate the Book of Moon, and then they will end their turn. We will put them out of their misery and get me out of this game by attacking into the Beals. Our second match is up against Blue Eyes White Dragon, and unfortunately this is on ranked ladder, so deck composition is a little different than what I showed you a couple of minutes ago. We get to go first, which is excellent, but we've drawn 5 spells, which is just a tiny bit bricky. I figured the only way I'm going to be able to walk out of this game unscathed is if I get a little bit greedy with Dark Laws. We can get 2 mask changes, which means 2 activations of Dark Law's effect, which is pretty sweet a lot of the time. Our opponent's going to start by activating Dragon Shrine, and I think, well, I guess I'll mask change now to prevent them from going to Graveyard. We go into Dark Law, and he banishes a copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon. So that's one gone. He's then going to Sage a Whitestone, which does nothing. Then Pot of Desires will get one, and unfortunately you can activate Advanced Ritual Art under Dark Law, so he's going to walk over my Dark Law with a copy of Chaos Max. So if we can out Chaos Max, I'm feeling pretty good. We're going to use Destiny Drawn Malicious, banish for Malicious, then use Summoner Monk's effect in order to get ourselves a Shadow Mist. We're going to use Shadow Mist in order to get a Mask Change, then Special Summon a Silent Swordsman, go into another Malicious, then overlay for Utopia, and he concedes. Our last match is also on ranked ladder, so don't get excited when you see some spicy tech out of the extra deck. Our opponent is playing Dinosaurs, and you can see they're on the 2-1 split of Lost Worlds 2 Dragonic Diagrams that a lot of people who expect a ban list to come down and mirror the OCG are playing. We get to go first, which is excellent. We're going to start by normal summoning Summoner Monk, switching it to defense mode, of course, then activating its effect, binning this Allure of Darkness for a Vion. We'll use the Vion to bin a Malicious, get a Malicious, and then Foolish Burial Goods our way into a Silent Swordsman. We'll tribute the Malicious for the Silent Swordsman, then go into Ragna Zero. Proxy Dragon is not legal on Dawn of a New Era's TCG ban list, so I had to get a little creative with what I put in the extra deck. Previously, my opponent was on something against which Ragna Zero was pretty good, so, you know, there it is. They're going to start by normal summoning Giant Rex and walking over our copy of Silent Swordsman. That gets us level 7, and I can't say I'm too unhappy to see that. I do outplay myself here by activating Reinforcement of the Army, and then remembering that the cards on my side of the field are quite good. We'll normal summon Celestial, then start attacking. We'll get over this Giant Rex, do 2,800 and 16 to face. Our opponent's going to draw. They get themselves a copy of Tyranno Infinity. They'll use Miscellaneous Sources effect, then banish 2 for Baby Saurus. Giant Rex comes back, of course, and they'll normal summon Aolo. We'll use Ragna Zero to destroy this copy of Giant Rex, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that. They get to go into Chanbara and make us look like a fool, then end their turn by getting an Overraptor activation. On our turn, we're going to use the Ragna Zero, which came in a lot of handy here to destroy that Chanbara. We'll use Summoner Monk's effect, and after Celestial draws cards, they'll concede. So we're back with the deck. This deck is a little complicated to play. Now I'm going to chalk that up to the fact that my brain just isn't ready for the thought process of Link summoning yet. And while it was definitely excellent to be able to make Dark Law and back it up with Silent Swordsman, I do wish we were a little more stun-focused than we are right now. Maybe by shaving the Celestials, the Destiny Draw, and a couple of other pieces of dead weight, we could include between 8 to 12 trap cards, doing our best impression of masked heroes from last format. It seems like it'd be much harder for our opponent to get over a Silent Swordsman level 7 if we could guarantee some sort of disruption or protection for it in the back row. Additionally, we're unlikely to get these 7 from anyone but an opponent who just flat out doesn't read the card at all, which can make sitting and waiting for Silent to chalk up 500 attack points at a time or be removed in a way that doesn't float a bit of a feel-bad. Still, I think there's a lot of room for innovation in this strategy, and I'm excited to see how people do innovate as more generic Link monsters continue to enable this. So that's that. Thank you, as always, for indulging me on another hero tirade. If you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/monobluetron every Monday and Thursday from 10 to midnight Eastern Standard Time, links in the description. And if you have an idea for a certain deck or archetype, let me know in the comment section below, and I will do my best to try it on a future episode. Otherwise, I'll see you Tuesday.